Last night I told you about how Labor had successfully been turning back people smuggling boats. That's a good thing, right? A demonstration that the left finally gets it, that the Green left have put aside their virtue signalling and come to understand that without borders, sovereign nations are not really nations, that if you don't control borders, they're not really borders. I mean, you only have to look at the US border with Mexico, America's southern border, to see what the muddle-headed, softer borders approach of the left can deliver. And in Europe too, the flood of boats and the tragedies at sea are all too familiar. Little wonder then that even the Europeans are starting to understand this, with the EU president starting to sound like former Australian Prime Minister John Howard.
We will decide who comes to the European Union and under what circumstances. We will decide who comes to the European Union and under what circumstances.
Yeah, there you go. The argument on borders has surely been won, hasn't it? The Australian approach has been proven right. The alternative is reckless. It surrenders control of borders. It leads to uncontrolled migration, and it exposes asylum seekers or refugees to deadly risks. But no, an Australian celebrity has decided this is not the case. An Australian lefty actress says this country, Australia, has something to be ashamed about, apparently.
Now, as an Australian, I can tell you that we learnt the hard way. The devastating physical and mental torment the refugees experienced whilst being corralled offshore. The psychological damage to those guarding them. The billions of dollars of taxpayers' money wasted on a now discredited and largely abandoned approach. And, may I say, the resultant shame and regret that many of my fellow Australians feel now surrounding these ineffective and inhumane policies.
Cate Blanchett shaming her country at the European Union. Dear oh dear, how could she get it so wrong? Our policies are so effective, the rest of the world, even the EU, wants to replicate them. And far from heartless, they've saved countless lives. They used to call her Carbon Kate, didn't they, because of her climate activism with Kevin Rudd. Now Cate Blanchett is ashamed of the country and the way it's re-established control of its borders and restored the integrity of our immigration system so that we can actually bring in a generous quota of legitimate refugees based on their need, not on their capacity to pay a people smuggler. A fine actress is Blanchett, so they say, and she needs a better scriptwriter, because you can't fake border security. You can't pretend to control your immigration system. And by the way, if Blanchett's such an expert, shouldn't she go to the countries the refugees are fleeing, perhaps to Afghanistan, Somalia, or even Syria? Go there and tell them how to run their place better.